Well, hello everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Roofing Contractor, Walls and Ceilings and Building Enclosure. I'm here today with my editors, John Wyatt and associate editor, Hannah Bololi. We are so honored to be here today with Vance and Melissa Carroll of Synthetic Sidings in Eagle, Colorado, one of the most beautiful places in our country where the sun always shines, right? And also we're here with Joe Bazzano and Kevin Kennedy with Beacon Exit Planning. These guys have been helping contractors for a long time and are here today to help Vance and Melissa with some insight on their business. John, I'll turn it over to you.
Eagle, Colorado, so that's near Vail, correct?
Yeah, we're about 20 miles from Vail.
The sun always shines in Colorado, right?
Yeah, they say we have more sunshine than Florida even, like 300 and some days a year on average.
I read a stat that says, like here in Michigan, where Hannah, John, and I are, we get like 30 days of full sun every year.
I'm sorry.
It's like 300.
Yeah, exactly.
300. I'm like, this is why we're living in the wrong place. You guys have a clear shot. So congratulations for living in the right place with all the sunshine.
And we're 7,000 feet up.
Yeah.
So the sunshine doesn't necessarily mean the warmth. And I guess my question to you guys is, during the winter months, is it hard for you to basically apply a lot of product?
It was quite challenging. Quite challenging in the beginning of my career. We had to fight a lot of blizzards, and yeah, I could tell you some stories, but luckily about 2000 I got a big job redoing the charter, and at that point I was able to start taking winters off. So since about 2000 and 2001 I've taken 4 to 5 months a year off, just relax and enjoy the surroundings. Unfortunately, it's in the winter time when I take off. I'm not a skier, so I'd rather be sitting by my pool in the summer, but I've been so busy I can't do that. But
well, before John and Hannah get started with too many questions, can you guys give us some background as to how your company name and like how long you've been in business?
Yeah, when I moved up here, originally I was working for a company out of Denver, and then I started with a local company, which was Synthetic Systems at the time, and it was owned by a fellow, Hans Seebacher, and he was from Germany. He was actually, I was told that he was instrumental in bringing the Stowe product to America, and he gave me a good education on it, and I grew from there, and it's just been I don't know, a wonderful career. I like playing in the mud, and I get paid for it, so it's been great.
That's excellent. How has the year been for you guys? I mean, you're still in, I guess, right after the season where you took off, you're due to start work, and then all this COVID nonsense began. So,
yeah. Well, I had a couple jobs lined up, and we went forward with them. We just worked safely. We wore masks all day and stayed away from each other and performed our duties. And yeah, I've been turning down work now because I'm retiring, but yeah, the work has been steady, I would say, and there's a lot of it out here available, but yeah, overall I don't think it's hurt the industry in our area here at all. There's lots of work going on. I'm getting calls still today, but
roughly, how far do you plan to work into this year? Are you around Thanksgiving is when you begin to wrap things up, or Halloween?
That's normally my end date in the year. Yeah, about Thanksgiving, I wrap things up. This year I've actually stopped working now. I've retired officially. End of May was my retiring time, and I've just been working around the house since then. My wife's keeping me plenty busy.
So who's running the business now?
Right now there's no one. I'm actually kind of just still in the water, we'll say. But there's still work out there. Hoping to turn the business over to someone or sell it, find someone that's interested, and I'd like to carry on in some fashion. I don't know if I can be a managerial position or something, but I would be willing to help someone get going back into it.
We get notices all the time asking, to manage our sales. That would be my only question this time. Do you work with a broker, or do you stand on your reputation and reach out in that way?
So now's a great time to segue this over to Joe and Kevin of Beacon Exit Strategy, is it? Joe and Kevin, would you guys please introduce yourself real quick, and then let's get into this, because I think Melissa and Vance have some important questions to ask.
Hello, this is Kevin. Thank you for having us here today. It's great. I'm greeting everyone from Newport, Rhode Island. My background with Beacon is actually I was a contractor who actually bought and sold a business, struggled with that in lots of different ways, and had a very expensive education in my own exit. And when I retired, I rediscovered myself to create Beacon Exit Planning to help other contractors and business owners through that complicated process. 2 years after I was in the business, Joe and I joined. I'm kind of the experience voice of the contractor and owner in this business, and Joe is the technical expert. It's a very complicated process with legal, taxes, insurance, accounting, valuation, and all sorts of different tools that we have to be aware of. And so we're very involved in the industry, not only in your magazine, but also Roofing Contractor magazine, helping owners and educating owners and speaking and writing. And that pretty much says it. And I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Always nice to contribute to industry, construction trades on this difficult process, and looking forward to hearing more about the Vance's journey and what you're about to embark on, and hopefully we can provide some guidance for you and give you some direction.
Sounds good.
Well, I guess, why don't we begin with the Vances maybe directing some questions to Joe and Kevin? Why don't we play it that way? Sound good?
Yeah, let me just correct you. It's the Carrolls.
Yes, you're right.
I'm sorry.
My apologies.
I absolutely apologize there.
That's all right.
So how do you establish worth? We think we're worth $1 billion, but we know that's not logical. But between what's in his head and what's sitting around here and our market, the market that we dug into for 35 years and established incredible relationships, it's a small community. In spite of that, it's very tourist oriented. Everybody knows everybody in kind of your business, but that's probably what's most valuable. And how do we capitalize on that?
Yeah, I could touch a little bit about that. It's funny you bring up that topic because valuation right now is probably one of the most difficult things to accomplish. We are in uncertain times, and with this COVID, that's one of the more difficult issues to address in evaluation. But aside from the COVID and what we're experiencing right now, I'll just give you some background into valuation. I'm a certified valuation analyst. I've been valuing businesses for about 20 years. So I got a little bit of sense of what's involved. I think from your perspective, sellers, as you mentioned, you think your business is worth $1 billion. Unfortunately, a buyer is probably not going to consider the value quite that high. So what you have to look at is the elements of your company. There's a variety of different items that get analyzed in valuing a business. First and foremost is your profitability and your cash flow. Obviously, you have to have a profitable business to have some worth to it. Secondly, you have to look at the quality of those earnings. If you're strictly a contractor-based company, meaning you're only as good as your last project, it's a little bit more difficult to sell because a buyer is going to see a lot of risk there. If you are a business owner or a contractor that has maybe a lot of recurring revenue, you have some maintenance associated with it, so you can tend to get some generating. You can kind of foresee what the revenue is going to be in the future. There's a little bit more value there. And then also you want to look at your customers. Do you work strictly for schools? Are you simply bid work, or do you have a lot of negotiated work that you work on? And is that how you generate a lot of your revenue? So a lot of these factors are considered. And then there's also the multiple. You know, every time I speak to a business owner, they're asking me what the multiple is. And there's a lot of variances there as well. Clearly, economic conditions have a factor. But again, the exposure or the characterization of your business is going to have a lot to do with it. And it all really boils down to risk. So what I always tell my business owner clients is I kind of put them in the buyer's shoes. You know, what would you pay for this business? And a lot of times the light goes off and there's a sense of realization that it's not worth $1 billion. It's worth considerably less. Now, as far as fine tuning that, that's where I would come in, and then I would help analyze the data and put that kind of information together. Generally in the trades, you know, once we can figure out a cash flow, generally in the trades right now, you're at anywhere from 3 to maybe 4.5 times earnings, or cash flow, I should say. So that's what you could expect to realize for a sale of a business. Again, there's a big difference between 3 and 4.5. So understanding why there's a 3 to 4.5 difference is critical. And if you have time, you can implement some strategies to get you more closer to the 4.5 times multiple.
I'm thinking, I don't know, with this COVID and everything, I think that might be an advantage to where we're located. If I can find someone, I don't know, if there's someone in a big city who wants to get out and get up here in the country, I don't know, that's just an attractive point of it.
And the big money, because they're ski resort towns. So I wrote to John in one of his questionnaires that we've only not been paid one time in 35 years. And my father was a contractor, and that wasn't the norm. You know, you got in trouble about once or twice a year where he hit the deadbeat or things didn't go right. But there's a lot of money up here, and we're very underserved in the repair of eaves and stucco. And most of the buildings here are massive hotels with eaves and stucco. And they have to look perfect all the time, you know, for the tourist. And so that's it's endless work. We haven't even worried about the building boom. They're really jumping on employee housing now because it's been neglected for so long. But that's generally not eaves. That's generally they're slapping those together. So that building is fine, but we've been plenty busy just taking care of those grand old hotels, and they're not going away.
I have a customer right there in Carbondale, which is close to you, and there's electrical contract, commercial electrical contractor, and they do quite well. There's some monstrous homes there where they'll spend $1 million just to tear them down, and then they'll rebuild on top of that. So I know the area, and yeah, to your point, geographic location in your customer base is a feather in your cap.
Oh yeah, since I've announced my retirement or whatever, I've probably turned down, I don't know, probably in excess of $1 million, maybe close to 2 million in work I could have gotten, but it's just it's time.
It's time.
Yeah.
He's a worker. He's on the scaffold as much as he's down there pointing and whistling, as they say.
So let me ask you another question with respect to transitioning your business. What does your management team look like? Are you pretty much that's it, right? It's very, very shallow.
It's a mom and pop business for sure. I've been, I don't know, up to about 25 employees at the high point, but on average, I probably run 10 or 12 guys. And
that's calculated, right?
Well,
that's preferred for us.
Well, that's limited by the availability of workers. There's not that many workers available. Many times I've had to turn down work just for lack of ability to find workers to do it. There's not that many skilled plasters in the area. But
And
how
not
do
that many young people who want to learn it. That's really becoming a huge issue.
how do you generate most of your revenue?
I don't advertise at all. My business, my quality gets me more business. I probably 70 to 80% is return business. I have customer hotels that just keep calling me every year, and yeah, I've just built my reputation, and that's carried me totally.
So the difficulty there is it's your reputation. How do you establish your business, or how do you create a transition that helps you carry that reputation to somebody else?
Right.
Well, that's why I'd say, I don't know, if there's someone interested, I could show them the fine points. There's a lot of tricks and, you know, tricks of the trade, and as well as knowing the people, the connections are important. But
That's why I ask about the management team, because in many businesses, the management team essentially is going to be that element that's going to help carry the characteristics of the reputation, because they're involved in the day-to-day. You're the captain, right? But they're the deckhands that make it happen.
yeah.
So Joe, do you mean the project managers, foremans, they're kind of the conduit that are going to basically be the bridge between
Pretty much, yeah.
old and new owners? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd like to direct a question to Kevin. Before I'm kind of dictating all the questions. Sorry, Hannah. One last question before I hand things over to Hannah. But Kevin, could you tell the Carrolls, do you have any advice for them on how they should actually promote the selling of the business? Should it just be word of mouth? Should they be a little more public and aggressive?
It's obvious that they have a good reputation and they have relationships, which are very, very, very important. And they're the most likely buyers in that circle. The challenge that every owner has is they have to sell to someone. You intuitively think that you're going to sell to an outsider or maybe your competitor. That's a likely buyer. But as Joe said, they're going to be buying future revenues. And they're also going to be buying future recurring revenues. So they're looking at cash flow projected out all the time, because what's going to happen is when they buy you, they're going to use the profits of that business to pay you. And so outside sales in the construction industry, those that go to market, fewer than 10% ever close. That's a real statistic. That's how hard it is to sell to an outsider, because of those future profitability. The most likely sale in a construction business is to your team, is to your managers. That's what we did. And by the way, when we went to sell our business, we turned down two opportunities, or two offers from an outside buyer, in other words, competitors. We looked at an ESOP. Actually, we had a private equity company approach us, and we ended up selling to our managers. And it passed the company on to the fourth generation of the company. That's the most common exit. Now, if you're a larger company, usually 30 million revenues and above, you can be attractive to a larger buyer. And if you're a smaller contractor, usually the low end is between 6 million and 10 million, what we call as a tuck-in. What a regional guy who is running a business for a larger consolidator, they'll tuck that company in, and they actually probably have managers that can go in and help run that business. That's how strong they are. But the dilemma always is, who do I sell to? And majority of the deals that we deal with are manage and buyouts. So there are two things that have to be ready in a manage and buyout. The owner has to be ready to leave, and the company has to be ready to take over. So you have to prepare, in a sale, you have to prepare the company, which is your team, your associates, and you're going to prepare the owner. And the biggest thing the owner has to do is to be able to relinquish control, and instead of being the manager day to day, their role is to teach and to educate that upcoming manager to be the CEO or the owner of the company. Start thinking strategically, start thinking like an owner, start getting really involved in the financial aspect of the business, start dealing with the relationships in the business. And that's a process that could take 3 to 5 years. And that's just the way it works. So my question I ask all the time is to the owners, during a busy season, can you take a 2-week vacation? I would ask.
No.
Oh,
Well, that
not a 2-minute vacation.
so and I'm not trying to trick you. That's the reason I ask that is basically that you are the business. You can't take time off. The company doesn't run day to day, doesn't run without you. So you are the business. So your challenge is how you're going to replace yourself. And what I'm hearing you say is that you're pretty much closing it down. Now, if you could find a great manager that you could spend a few more years with and start playing that role and that relationship, which I previously mentioned, then you have an internal buyer. But that's easier said than done, because usually those people in the business are people you've been depending upon when you're not involved day to day in the business. In other words, when you take a 2-week vacation, they're running the business and you're not talking to them every day. They understand the business, they understand your customers, they understand the culture, the safety, and everything about that business. And they're the go-to people in the business when you're not around, when you have to face the business. So, John, if I'm addressing it, I'm really what I'm trying to do is to frame Vance's challenge, and it's about who's that person in the business, could be possibly an internal buyer.
Well, I've definitely considered that. I wanted to pass it on to someone that's worked for me, but I don't know. People that work for me don't have the finances. Yeah, I didn't pay them.
That's not unusual. That is not unusual. The managers can't afford to buy you out. You don't pay them enough.
Right.
We had nothing to start either, but we just, bootstraps and all that, his personality and my efficiency.
Well, and you're a team, and you're a successful team. You've made that happen. Let me go back to 1986, when I was working in a company 6 years, and the owner of the company came to me and he says, Kevin, I want to retire in 10 years. And I'd like you to buy me, I'd like you to buy me out, you and 2 other associates. And I said, Dick, I'd love to buy the company, but I can't afford it. I got a mortgage. We used to have station wagons back then. I have a station wagon payment. And I said that, and I have 2 children in preschool. I got to save for their educations. And he says, Kevin, don't worry about it. I said, what do you mean don't worry about it? He says, you come in this company and you make it profitable and you make it grow. We'll take those profits and then I'll buy my stock and I'll sell the stock to you. So all you got to do is do that. And I said, Dick, I come in every day to work doing that. So bottom line is a company pays for everything. So you buy yourself out with your own money and you buy yourself out with your own profits, usually over a period of 8 to 12 years, which is good news for the seller because that's the retirement. That's money coming in. And so they never can afford to buy them. They never can afford to buy it. You have to structure in some way for that to happen. Now, having said that, if that person's really capable and really has the ability to do that, I would say you start getting him and testing him and coaching him and see if he can handle the jobs away from you, and you become the teacher and the coach and get him ready to buy that company. Now, I don't know, he needs a teammate. You have Carol there who's running the office when you're away, who's dealing with suppliers, who's dealing with payroll, who's dealing with all the regulations, who's dealing with customers, who's dealing with everything when you're not there. Because in order to ensure the safety, quality, and production, I imagine, Vance, you're pretty much arm's length from the jobs.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely hands-on. Oh.
Yeah. So you got to replace yourselves in this situation. So it's a challenge.
Well, it sounds like I should have started 5-10 years ago, but again, I was trying to turn it over to someone that was in my team, but
bingo.
So far,
No,
it hasn't worked.
I think that's one of the largest misconceptions is that a buyer's going to have to go out and get several $1 million or whatever the sales price is. First of all, no bank is probably going to lend it because they just don't have the financial capability. And so essentially the business becomes the bank. And if you look at it from a high level view, the business is paying for it anyway. So if you go out and get bank financing, where's that buyer going to get the money? He's working every day and the bank's financing it. The business is financing it to pay back the bank. What you're doing by going to the bank is you're just making it more costly. You're adding an interest component to the transaction, which puts more stress on the business. And we find in working with our business owners, we try to minimize as much stress as we can from the company, because when you start creating a buyout situation, again, you're taking it becomes an exercise of cash flow management, right? So you've got cash. You'll need cash to continue operating the business. You may need to buy some equipment. You're still going to be paying salaries, but now you've added this buyout component to it that, again, is going to put a lot of strain on the cash in the business. So by making it more costly, that includes expenses like interest and taxes. In certain situations, we've seen these transactions structured in a way where the buyer only got 40% of the proceeds because of the way the business was structured and the tax ramifications and the fees that were associated with it. You know, the buyer's thinking, hey, I'm selling my business for $5 million and I only end up with $2 million. It's crazy, right? So obviously taxes are going to be a big consideration. And to get back to the point where we started, it's unreal. It's almost unrealistic to see that somebody's going to be able to come to the table, at least from an internal standpoint, that somebody's going to be able to come to the table with the dollars to be able to buy you out at closing.
That's the way we bought the company from, the neighbor of the guy who owned it decided he didn't want to be a restaurateur anymore. And he just let us pay him. And it was pretty low money. But as we went, we'd show up at his restaurant because he went back to being a restaurateur on Christmas and hand him a check and tell him he changed our lives and thank you so much. So we just had a wonderful experience in how we were able to buy this business.
So you've been in that position, you realize that the ability to get that money or bring that money to the table is pretty difficult, and there needs to be some compromises on both sides.
Yeah, I would be concerned of something going wrong and I holding the bag, so to speak.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways around that. Selling the whole business. Again, it depends on which avenue you go down. If you're going to sell to an outside party, you pretty much want to get as much money as you can. But if you're selling it to somebody internally, there's ways that you can stay in control of the business until you get your final payment. That kind of gives you some leverage and gives you some ability to override any unnecessary decisions that the buyers want to make. But if you get somebody from the outside coming in, they're pretty much going to want to buy full control of that business. And so that's where you have to really be careful.
Well, I'm fine to give control over, and I'm willing to, assist someone in whatever, getting it going. But as far as someone in my workforce taking it over, I don't know. At this point, now that I've kind of shut down operations, I don't foresee that as a real possibility.
Yeah, it sounds like your best opportunity right now is to try to hit the open market, and see if there's any outside buyers that would be interested. I mean, you're in a great area. As you said, there's plenty of work. Certain your crew would stay on, and they can help support the new buyer. So that may be the best opportunity, at least the first go around.
Yeah, there's certainly some of my crew that are still available to work. They're not working for me, but they're still in the area, and yeah, they're available if things solidify. But
Vance, some of your best communication for that would be your suppliers that have who have a mutual concern about losing sales with you.
That's good.
They know the competitors. They know they know people that may be interested in doing of buying the company, and your competitors. But it's a delicate dance. You have to be prepared. You just can't go in unprepared for that conversation.
And are we talking about an accountant or a lawyer? Who should we?
Your suppliers. You buy materials.
For that, but I mean the process.
Who can help you with that? Joe, you can talk to me a little bit about this. I was actually talking about suppliers that know the marketplace, who might be interested buyers of your company, or someone who's a manager who's looking for an opportunity and really competent. Sometimes I can't. Oh, you know this, Jill, from your experience and your husband's experience. There's a lot of you'll find people that are in the supply industry that actually want to get in the contracting industry and know the industry that might be willing to buy that company because it's isolated, there's less competition, you have relationships, and you're willing to help him, teach him the business. And if you, by the way, when you sell to a manager, you are a team. The person selling wants you to succeed, and the person buying wants to succeed without you being there eventually. So I mean, it becomes a real teaching and a real cooperative relationship moving forward because you have mutual interests in mind.
So Kevin and Joe, do you recommend that that Vance would come out of retirement to try to? Is that a better opportunity for him to try, even for a couple of 24 months, to try to make that sale happen as he's talking to people? Is he more valuable with the company still up and running rather than having shut down operations?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake sellers make sometimes is taking their foot off the pedal. When a buyer comes to see your business, the first thing they're going to look at is your financial statements or financial records. And the last thing they want to see is a declining forecast or a declining pattern. So if you're out of the business and you're kind of slowing down a little bit, don't expect to get a lot of money for your business because it's trending in negative direction. And as I said earlier, for a buyer, it's all about the risk. And so you want to present your business in the best light and try to minimize that risk for the buyer. So that, Jill, you bring up a good point. The idea that you're retired and you're slowing down could have a severely negative impact on the ability to sell the business, or at least to get the highest value.
Oh, I understand that totally. But up here, the demand is so high. Like I said, I've turned down lots of work, and I understand it's a bad position now that I've shut the business down essentially to try and sell it as a viable business. But is it, I don't know, is it correct that I understand that the taxes are higher if I'm selling, say, my supplies primarily as opposed to my skills?
Yeah, so that gets us in the real technical area for taxation. When you sell your business, you're going to sell it one of two ways. You're going to either sell your assets or you're going to sell your stock. And if you're selling it to an outside party, you typically sell your assets. If you sell it to your manager, you're typically going to sell your stock. From a tax perspective, selling your stock is the best alternative because you're going to pay the 20% rate, flat 20% rate, because it's similar to you selling your investments in Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever stock you may have in your portfolio. Your stock in your business is essentially the same type of equity. When you sell your assets, there's a process that you need to go through, and you have to allocate the sales price to different classes of assets. And those assets each have a different tax ramification to it. So to your point, if you have inventory, your inventory is going to be classified as a certain type of asset, and that's going to be taxed as ordinary income. Whereas if you have goodwill in the business, your goodwill is going to be taxed at a capital gains rate. Okay, so yeah, you bring up a good point. Selling your assets will create different tax ramifications for your business based on the type of assets that you are selling.
Yeah, primarily at this point, I'm pretty secure in my retirement and whatever. I'm hoping to just get a little more for my nest egg or whatever. I'm not looking to get rich on it or nothing, but
I was kidding about the billion.
I know. So here's what I would suggest. If you're going to try to sell the business, where you're going to get the most value for your business is try to find a good broker that specializes in the construction trades. Once you've identified the fact that you want to sell to an outside party, a broker is going to be worth their weight in gold. They know the contacts. They know they have a substantial database of potential buyers, and they'll be able to get. That's the hardest part, quite honestly, is getting buyers to come after your business and try to buy your business. Once you find a buyer, then it's important to do a little internal analysis, identify what the tax ramifications are going to be. You want to go through a process called normalizing your earnings. A lot of times when I see business owners trying to sell, they'll just give them their tax returns. And that's the worst possible situation because, as you know, tax returns are all about reducing your income, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you give them your tax returns and all of a sudden you get an offer that's substantially lower than you anticipated, well, shame on you because that's what you gave them. But there's a process that you need to go through that's called normalizing earnings. And that's adding back certain expenses and normalizing the cash flow to a point where it's somewhat sanitized. In other words, if I was to buy your business and I was to run it strictly for profit, I would look through your P&Ls and try to add back any discretionary expenses or certain expenses where maybe you have overpaid or underpaid for that matter, and then try to get a true cash flow stream of what I could anticipate in the future. And so that's a process that a broker would go through with you, and that's going to help with a commercial, if you will, of your business. So you're going to present the buyer with this book that's going to be a commercial for your business, going to show the financial information, it's going to show all the highs and some lows of your business, and with the hopes of trying to generate a letter of intent from a buyer. That's when you get into the negotiations and the due diligence and so forth. And for some business, it's really easy. For some business, it's pretty extensive, that process. So that's what I would recommend. I think that's where you're at. You don't really have anybody internally that can buy it from you. So I think going into the open market, and again, I think you hit the nail on the head because of your territory, your geographic location, and just the economy that's going on there. And through this COVID, I'm assuming you're essential business, so you probably don't have much of a downturn. And yeah, it's probably a pretty desirable business on its own. You know, not considering the fact that you're retired and it's going to slow down. You know, you're probably going to see some a little bit less than you anticipated for it because of that. But I think you might be able to sell this business.
Joe and Kevin, I've had this like thing going around in my head that I should construct a letter and send it to existing buildings in Denver, which is about 150 miles away, and see if they want a branch of their business up here. Now, even if they use their name, you know, it's still our contacts, Vance and Minimal Management, but that seems like ding, because when contractors in Denver bid jobs up here, now where are we going to house our guys? At the Hyatt? You're not going to make no money, you know. So we're here, we're established, and we could be but just a branch of a bigger business that just hasn't had.
That's an interesting question. That you're perceptive to say that. I would also say, you're an Eagle. Do you travel to Edwards, or do you have a competitor in Edwards?
We have one competitor. We only have one person in this whole area that has EIFS insurance. And at first that was laughed at. Oh, you don't need that. And Vail Associates tried to actually self-insure their own jobs. So we don't need the insurance. Pretty soon they were coming back around. Oh yeah, okay, can you come?
That's dangerous. Yeah. So
I would say to that point too, I think that's an interesting avenue to take. And I think it'd be a good avenue to take. I would be careful of confidentiality. You know, if word gets out that you're for sale, how is that going to impede your business? How does that affect your employees? You know, there's a lot of issues that could arise from that particular scenario. Maybe your broker could direct those communications to those prospects on a confidential basis. So there's a lot of ways to do that. I think you need to be careful of that. But again, having said that, you're closed. So, you could try that. You could try that.
Sort of blame everything on COVID at this point. It hit exactly the time, in fact, probably pushed us to say, okay, let's retire this year. We're spitting in the wind anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of, we can account for that, we're not working right now. And those letters, I would get those out before the end of August. And when you could typically expect, that, well, I hope to God we can expect that this passes.
Well, guys, there's so much to unpack here. What a great chat. I do think we're running a little bit longer than we wanted to, but boy, I think there's a lot to contemplate for the Carrolls here. And I think there's some great advice. Fortunately, this is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to what Joe and Kevin have to say. Are there any closing things you'd like to wrap up with before I pass it back to Jill?
I don't know, one point that came up, you were talking about inspections and that. One thing that's been kind of interesting that kind of helped me stay in business is the inspectors in this area. They're afraid of EFIS. I don't know. I've asked them about getting EFIS inspections, and they told me it's a special inspector. And I asked them, who is the inspector? And they said they don't know. And they didn't even know how to find out who the special inspector was.
Good old boy.
So due to that fact, there's been no inspection in this industry whatsoever. And that's really generated a lot of work for me in the fact that I'm doing repairs. And in fact, exclusively, almost for the last 20 years, all I've done is time and material. I don't hardly even bid on jobs. I don't have to bid against people. People just hire me and I charge my rate, and it just flows like that. It's kind of good, but it's kind of bad for the industry in this area because there's a lot of corners being cut.
Yeah. Well, you're evidently you're the respected person in that that field in the area,
Yeah.
and that's quite frankly, that's something, man. That's a reputation you build over the years, and it can't be taken away.
Oh yeah, I'm real proud of everything I've done, and I've never cut corners.
And you should be, and you should.
Thank you.
You pass a lot of the techniques and the process and the standards and the requirements to the people in the field too. They know what to expect from you and know what to expect with your brand and your company.
Yeah, and I don't know, I was hoping to carry on the tradition, whatever, but
we can have a private conversation about that individual if you want to. And Jill can pass my contact information on to you because I don't have any way to contact you right now.
Yeah, I'll make sure you guys.
okay.
Yeah,
can.
we'll take care of it.
Well, we are so excited to help you, Vance and Melissa. I mean, it's really great to hear how proud you are of the work that you do. And clearly you guys do incredible work right there in your neck of the woods. I do wish that we would have caught up with you about 8 years ago to introduce you to Kevin and Joe, but that's okay. I think there's still some great opportunities to figure out how to make this happen. And I mean, like what you were saying earlier, like, didn't you say you bought the business from somebody else who really helped you guys out? So I think it would be really fun. Maybe Hannah, I know you and I talk a lot about our young guns and our next generation. And maybe there's something we can do to help connect you with one of those young guns in the industry. And also we can leverage some of the relationship. Well, you have them as well right there with your distributors and your suppliers, whoever you buy your products from. So I want to say thank you very much for your time. And Joe and Kevin. Kevin, I'm so sorry I didn't introduce you in the very beginning. I guess I didn't, I should have done that.
You didn't see my face up there. That's for one.
Well, every time you speak, it says Kevin Kennedy is talking. So thank you, Joe and Kevin, so much for your time today. And again, Vance and Melissa, thank you for sharing your story. And we will definitely be following up with you so we can help in any way, because that's what we're here to do, is to help you figure this out through this road and connect you it's always my passion to connect contractors with people that'll help them solve their problems. So as well as Hannah and John, that's why we do what we do, why we love what we do. So we're really glad that you reached out to us and that we've been able to at least get the conversation started. So to everybody watching, please stay safe and healthy. If you need to contact us, make sure you go to wconline.com, click on the contact us page. While you're there, make sure you sign up for our free digital edition and our free e-newsletter. So you're always up to date when we're going to be doing interviews like this and recording some great videos of some great information for you as well. So everyone, again, stay safe and healthy and have a great day. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again, Joe and Kevin.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Joe and John, for having
Thank
us
you,
on.
everyone.